Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? I am Scott. Bo is taking a nap. Cricket is running around someplace but refuses to be exploited for the cat grift. It is the 24th day of June, 2022. It is about going on 8 o'clock in the morning. It's 81 degrees already this morning in sunny Tampa, Florida. How are you doing? Let's see. Yesterday we talked about how they were pissed off in Congress, and I showed you a video of Kamala Harris making up a bunch of bullshit about why the Supreme Court decision on that case in New York was unconstitutional. And of course, the only thing she could spew out of her mouth was Buffalo, Uvalde, shooting. Though the case had nothing to do with that, and certainly hasn't prevented any shootings in New York, and certainly isn't going to prevent people who are criminals from getting illegal handguns in the first place, or guns in the first place. I showed you that, and I deliberately avoided talking about it's the left. It's all the left. As many out there have done and will do today. But there's going to be a bit of a twist today, because what also happened yesterday was a bipartisan gun control bill was passed in the Senate. And they had 14 Republican senators jump ship and side with the Dems to pass this new federal bill. I'm going to talk about that bill in a second. What? Oh. Yeah. I was going to wear the hat to start off the video, and then I realized you guys made me feel self-conscious, so screw you. You get my shiny bald head. That's what you get. But he wanted to wear it, so there he is. I can't leave him up there because Bo will see him and think he's a Bo toy. Ah, there's Gabby. Gabby. And Bo chases Gabby off because Bo can't stand any other animal getting attention. Let me show you this, because I want to make sure you understand, at least my point of view. Here, Biden held up a card, and I don't know why he was showing it to maybe he was making a joke because he's senile and doesn't realize the implications of it. But he held it up to the press at a recent press conference where they're going to ask questions, give him a few seconds, and then the press leaves, and he has a meeting with somebody quickly and leaves. That's his script. Of course, we know that's his stage script. That's his staging. Those are his cues, what he has to do physically. And we know, of course, he goes from that to the paper that has the script on it. The most obvious of these folks doing this now is, of course, the press secretary. A woman who can't answer any question without fucking going through and reading whatever page that she comes across that she thinks is similar to or has something to do with the question she's asked. They're just readers. That's all they do. When I saw this, I had to make a point on Twitter. This is not just Biden. This has been going on for a while. These are actors. These are performers. Yes, some have, like Liz Cheney, she's a monster because she was raised by a monster. She's a sycophant to big business, like they all are. Some have passions about what they believe to be their political leanings, but they're not altogether that different, because every single one of them believes in handing over handing over this country to big business. There was also a thing yesterday where the mayor of New York came out. Let me bring this back up real quick. When the mayor of New York came out, this new mayor, Eric, whatever his name is, he came out. This guy's a fucking tool, man. He came out and was bitching about the new law from the ruling of the Supreme Court. And he's just not going to have it. And he just flat out says he's just not going to have it. People having a constitutional right not to be selected. I mean, if you're special I told you this. If you're special in New York, if you're fucking a celebrity or you're a billionaire or you're a politician, a thought leader, if you're one of these folks, yeah, you can have the right to self-defense, but nobody, the common people, the little people, no. And of course, the Supreme Court said that's unconstitutional. There's only 6 states in which that kind of thing happens. There are specific guidelines, whereas you can renounce your own through your own behavior, whether it's something that you do, or whether it's you're psychotic and beat your wife, or whether or not you've done something and been demonstrated by a doctor and a court that you are mentally unstable. You can exclude yourself from that particular constitutional right, and rightly so. We'll talk about that more in a second. But to add the added ambiguity of, okay, we just don't like you. We don't like the cut of your jib. You're just not going to be able to have a fucking gun to defend yourself in an increasingly violent fucking city like Manhattan, where I lived for 7 years. That's absolutely fucking wrong. That's absolutely saying, okay, some people get fucking privileges and can have constitutional rights, and others, just because we don't like them, can't. That's wrong. And the Supreme Court was absolutely right. Out comes fucking Mayor Eric, who has done, I think Eric is his first name, who has done his level best to set the worst possible example. People are still fucking, or we're still locked down in fucking New York, and this dude was out partying, no mask, dancing little fucking jigs around with other wealthy people. The only ones wearing masks that I saw in those photographs were the servant class. We'll get more into that in a second, too. While these laws are being restricted and removed in some cases, other ones are popping up. And it doesn't matter whether or not you're a Republican or Democrat in the Senate, because certain laws are going to get passed. Because there are agendas. We talked about that yesterday, too. There is a government agenda. These people are all just actors. That's why 14 senators, exactly the amount they needed to pop over to the other side, popped over to the other side after having this quote-unquote, conference and debate and arguing back and forth over which elements of the laws that the Democrats wanted were going to be included and which weren't. This is the bill from the New York Times. Senate breaks decades-long impasse on gun safety. The 65-33 vote late Thursday was aimed at keeping firearms out of the hands of dangerous people. Earlier in the day, the Supreme Court struck down the New York's gun law, likely, I can't read because this thing keeps popping up, likely limiting the ability of other state and local governments to restrict guns outside the home. That's what fucking Eric said. I don't care about the fucking Supreme Court. I don't care. Because we're such a democracy. We're such a functioning fucking system here. Okay, so we're going to read a little bit of this from the New York Times. Again, thank you, John. And, but I want to get down into this, into the nitty-gritty of it, because I have something else here for you. Take a listen to this. The Senate approved bipartisan legislation Thursday aimed at keeping firearms out of the hands of dangerous people. after a small group of Republicans joined Democrats to break through their party's longstanding blockade on gun safety measures and shatter nearly 3 decades of congressional paralysis on toughening the nation's gun laws. Spurred to action by a mass shooting that killed 19 children and 2 teachers at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, which, by the way, wouldn't have killed 19 children and 2 teachers had a bunch of law enforcement agencies been given a stand-down order to wait 77 minutes for kids to be shot and teachers to be shot and bleed to death. The Senate then passed a measure 65-33, with 15 Republicans, including Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, the minority leader, breaking ranks to side with the Democrats in support of the measure. 2 Republican senators were absent. It would enhance background checks for prospective gun buyers age 18 to 21, requiring for the first time that juvenile records, including mental health records beginning at the age of 16, be vetted for potentially disqualifying material. Keep that in mind. I'll read it again. It would enhance background checks for prospective gun buyers ages 18 to 21, requiring for the first time that juvenile records, including mental health records, beginning at age 16, be vetted for potentially disqualifying material. The bill would provide incentives for states to pass red flag laws that allow guns to be temporarily confiscated from people deemed to be judged too dangerous to possess them. So it's not just a bill that prevents people in background checks from having the ability to purchase a gun as per their constitutional right, which was just upheld yesterday by the Supreme Court. No, in this case, if you are deemed too dangerous, they will actually come and snatch up your guns. And 15 Republicans signed on for that. Oh, but Scott, it's just the Dems. What were they? It's all of them. Against all of us, by the way. And it would tighten the federal ban on domestic abusers buying firearms, strengthen laws against straw purchasing, and trafficking of guns. It also includes hundreds of millions of dollars in funding for mental health programs and to beef up security in schools. To beef up security in schools. Hundreds of millions of dollars. How much is the Uvalde school district going to get of that? It's one thing about these fucking police chiefs, chief of police, the head of these little departments like the mall cops and the fucking school systems. They want more. They want bigger. Arredondo is in charge of 5 people. 5 people who look like mall cops. They're not fucking Delta. They're not former special ops. So what does he want? He wants more money so he can turn his kingdom over ruling over 5 people to a kingdom ruling over 20. Wow, I'm something. How much money is the Uvalde school system going to get for standing down and waiting for those 77 children to die? No, I'm sorry. God, those 19 children to die. Waiting 77 minutes for those 19 children to die. How much money is he going to get for that? Because apparently, according to this, he's going to get some. Love and money. Two of the oldest motives in the history of crime. I don't care if the money they were using was shiny rocks. Two of the oldest motives in the history of crime. And no one can explain the 77 minutes. Over and over again in this article, you will hear where somebody comes out and mentions Uvalde. One guy comes out and said, a Republican comes out and says, oh my God, yeah, we had to do it because so many parents are frightened because of what happened in Uvalde. And if you don't believe me, I'll show you. Here it is. I'm sorry. It's Senator Christopher Murphy of Connecticut. He's a Democrat. I have never seen families and kids and parents so scared as they were after Uvalde. Do you think maybe if those officers, those 3 officers, went in immediately because the door was unlocked, and maybe one of them gets shot while the other 2 take out the guy, and maybe one kid gets killed? Do you think Senator Chris Murphy would be able to say that with a straight face? I've never seen families and kids and parents as scared as they were after Uvalde, after one kid got wounded and a teacher got a splinter trying to hide under a desk. But that happened. Mr. Murphy said that while the legislation fell short of everything Democrats would like to pass, it provided an answer that allows us to tell families all across the country that the era of inaction is over. They can also tell big business. That's why I mentioned, I wonder why I fucking brought up Eric, Mayor Eric. In a press conference, he's talking about, in the same press conference where he says, basically, we don't care what the Supreme Court says, we're going to continue to do what we do and deny the wrong people guns, while, of course, his bodyguards all carry guns. And the bodyguards of all the rich people he hangs out with and dances with the night away, while people are locked down in New York, they all have guns. Because they're the right people. You understand? He also said that he's going to get together with his corporate counsel and try to figure out a way around this fucking thing. What does that mean? Does that mean he has a council of people sitting around who were former corporate people? They have a corporate mentality? No. He's literally telling you he's going to take his fucking marching orders from a group of CEOs and big business leaders in the city. And they're going to come in there, or he's going to go to them more than likely, and sit down and take his marching orders from them, like the Prime Minister from New Zealand going to BlackRock and being recorded coming out of BlackRock. He's going to go to them, and he's going to sit down, and they're going to have their stuff. Here you go. This is what you do. Okay. Yes, master. Thank you very much. I'll do that. And off he goes. No questions. No different than the Prime Minister of New Zealand. No different than Trudeau in Canada. No different than Biden and Harris. And Trump. And Obama. And Bush. And Clinton. And Bush. Carter was probably a little less. Ford. Nixon was certainly his own man. Probably the last one we had, believe it or not. So I wanted to share that with you. He's going to get together with his corporate council, and they're going to figure out how to get around the Supreme Court of the United States of America, which should be a video in and of itself from me, because nothing tells you fascism more than that. Fuck the fucking Supreme Court. Fuck the will of the people. Fuck the Constitution. Let me get together with my corporate heads. They can tell us exactly how we should fix this problem and get around these people. I wonder how many of those corporate heads are, I don't know, head of BlackRock, big time in fucking the World Economic Forum. Anyway, I wanted to share this with you as well. The bill will set aside $750 million in federal grant funding to help states implement red flag laws and for other crisis interventions, including mental health courts. Bingo! Bingo, 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 bingo. The legislation will set aside millions of dollars, largely in grants, to address mental health in schools and communities, including $150 million to the National Hotline, and provide $300 million for school safety programs, including bolstering security and funding school resource officers. There you go. That's called motive. In case you didn't notice. The big one here, though, is $750 million to install red flag laws and other crisis intervention programs, including mental health courts. Why? One of the big things about purchasing guns, and this is, people accept this. I accept this. If somebody has been adjudicated, somebody beats their wife, or the wife beats them, that's probably somebody who shouldn't be. Somebody who's a bully who beats on their wife, and there's a restraining order and shit. They shouldn't be allowed to have guns. Somebody else, a fugitive from justice. That makes sense. If you're running from the law, you probably shouldn't be able to stop at a pawn shop and buy a fucking pump-action riot gun. Convicted of a felony. It should depend on the felony. However, we are stuck in the primitive mode in this country. And anybody who commits a felony, possession of weed, more than 2 ounces. Oh, we're going to give you fucking intent to distribute. I smoke a whole bunch. No, intent to distribute, that's a felony. Ergo, that dude can't own a gun. Or he can't purchase a gun. Well, with a background check. This is the state of Florida. Illegal aliens. Not undocumented persons. Illegal aliens. Someone dishonorably discharged from the armed services. Again, I don't really agree with that one, but there you go. Somebody who renounced their U.S. citizenship. Well, I don't know. Again, I don't know. I don't know. If you renounce your U.S. citizenship, that pretty much makes you an illegal alien, doesn't it? So you gotta stick with that if you're going to go with that. But there's the big one. Adjudicated mentally defective or involuntarily committed to treatment. If you have been involuntarily committed to treatment, Baker acted, as they call it in Florida, or you have been adjudicated by a judge as mentally defective, you're a mental defect, you shouldn't be allowed, they say you're not going to be allowed to purchase a firearm when you do a background check. Who did that with the chair? Bo. Put him back where he belongs. So, this is where this gets interesting. All this money, aside from the money, all this money, the $700-something million going into, $750 million going into these programs to do this. If you go, it's a hard thing to find, by the way. It is called S2938 Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. It's a lot of money, but what you're not going to find is a link to the actual bill in the Senate. However, I found it through different means. Now, I'm looking specifically in here for these new fucking courts that they're going to be setting up to adjudicate people as being mentally defective. Okay? That's a lot of money going into that. I talked about this years ago. Years ago. They want to set up these little kangaroo courts everywhere. In every state, they want to set up at least one of these kangaroo courts where they will just sit there all day long, rubber stamping one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. All of these things, and the stamp's going to say mentally defective, mentally defective, mentally defective, mentally defective, mentally defective. And each one of those stamps will remove someone's rights to own or purchase a firearm. Once that stamp from that court they set up is cracked down on your fucking case, not only will you not be able to purchase weapons via whatever fucking background check they have, but they will literally come and remove the ones you have. That is all in this. Now, I'm going to scroll down in a minute and see if we can find it. But before we do, I want to show you why 15 Republicans felt it was okay to sign up for it, and then all the Democrats signed up for it. What does that fucking word right there say? Medicaid. Throughout this whole fucking thing, I'm at page 21 now, and I've been reading this thing, and reading this thing, and going over this thing, and reading this thing, and reading this thing, and reading this thing. Over and over and over again, it talks about setting up these processes for periodic screening and diagnostic services through Medicaid in schools. Why Medicaid? Through Medicaid and the CHIP program, they're going to be rolling these out in certain schools to test and check for and look for potential mentally defective kids who should have this adjudication follow them around for the rest of their lives. They don't act right. They don't give the right fucking, when they're in class and in comes the trannies and they're dancing around and they're like, what the fuck is this? Oh my God. Off you go to check with the Medicaid program to see if you're mentally defective. I mean, if they don't suck up to the teacher the right way, are they mentally defective? Are they bullied? Does that make them mentally defective? Are they bullying? Here's the CHIP program. State Children's Health Insurance Program. CHIP. Over and over again, it's Medicaid and CHIP, Medicaid and CHIP, Medicaid and CHIP. Why? Why? You're trying to bankrupt Medicaid? You could argue that. But I think even more relevant, and I think this is why the Republicans signed on for it. And of course we know the Democrats don't really give a shit about their fucking poor, working class, sometimes, as in the case with Uvalde, darker skinned constituents. I believe that the reason the Republicans jumped on board with this was because it's going to be, at least at the beginning, exclusively targeting poor, working class families. You don't have a lot of need for Medicaid. People are on Medicaid through, and that's where the funding comes from for the treatment programs for the kids. Well, how many kids in suburbia land where they're all backing fucking Biden. How many of those kids are on Medicaid? By the same token, down here in Tampa, in blue-collar land, well, it's kind of suburbia, but we know where the Trumpsters live and work, and kids go to school. How many of them are on Medicaid? Not a lot. What you're looking at, I believe, the reason they're able to roll out these programs like this and stamp people and kids with these fucking lifelong rulings on their mental health that'll follow them the rest of their fucking lives is because they're going to roll it out at first with the poor people and the working class, the working poor and their kids first and foremost. And I believe that wholeheartedly, which is one of the reasons I think they agreed to allow this to happen, the Republicans. Let's pediatric mental health care access grants. Okay. Well, they're talking about now Indian tribes and tribal land. So what tribal organizations? So what are we talking about? Who are we talking about? Let me scroll a little bit through here and see if we can find where they're talking about setting up these mental health courts. This is an 81-page fucking document. So if I don't find it, I don't find it. Examining the juvenile records, which is something I don't believe they could do previously. But again, there's also a class aspect to that. If someone's 16-year-old kid who's working poor commits something in the exact same fucking felony charge, they're going to get a fucking public defender. Public defender's going to fucking plead it out, and you're going to have a fucking felony on your record. You might only get 2-3 years probation. You might get some kind of intervention program, but that's basically what you're going to get. If you come from the upper middle class or the rich people, and you've got a 16-year-old who does the same thing, that shit's gone. So there's, again, a class aspect to this as well, even to that. But let me see if I can find this fucking courts thing. Give me a second. Engaged in business. I don't know what the application there is. Engaged in. I think it means it has to do with state crisis intervention bill. I think the engaged in business means selling firearms. Is this it? Are they striking that? Here we go. Implementation of state crisis intervention court proceedings and related programs or initiatives, including but not limited to mental health courts, by adding the following to this. So here we go. The use of burn grants for implementation of state crisis intervention programs. Implementation of state crisis intervention proceedings and related programs or initiatives, including but not limited to mental health courts, drug courts, veteran courts, and extreme risk protection order programs. So it's talking about going through due process and the rights granted on the 4th and 5th Amendments of the Constitution as applied by the states and interpreted by state courts and United States courts, including the Supreme Court of the United States. Such programs must include, at the appropriate phase, to prevent any violation of constitutional rights, at minimum notice, the right to an in-person hearing, an unbiased adjudicator, yeah, right, good luck with that, the right to know opposing evidence, and the right to present evidence, and the right to confront adverse witnesses, the right to be represented by counsel at no expense to the government. How is that possible? Which means you got to pay for your own fucking lawyer. And if you're poor, good luck with that. Which means you're going to have, in this case, you're going to have an unbiased adjudicator, which of course we know is bullshit. The court systems that we have as they are fucking extremely biased. Especially towards poor people. If you're rich, fuck. Where's OJ? But if you're poor, can you imagine a poor person got charged or did what OJ did and had the evidence against him like that? Dude would be serving 10 life sentences. So they're going to put these kangaroo courts together. And there's a whole bunch of money for the kangaroo courts. And the Republicans jumped on board with this as well. Just enough to make sure it got passed. Now they're going to rush it down to the fucking House. And the House is going to fucking rubber stamp it as fast as Nancy's little crooked hands could. And they're going to run it across with Nancy's little high heels. Maybe she'll put on her sneakers for this one. Just as happy as a clam, waving at all the fucking corporate fucking council people as she goes by. We're doing your bidding. We're taking the pitchforks out of the fucking unruly mob's hands. That's what this is about. That's all this is about. But here's the thing, folks, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. First it came for the socialists. This is a trial balloon. They're running this up and seeing if they can get away with it and if they can implement it and get it put in place just to deal with those pesky poor people. And take the guns out of the hands of those wife beaters. Those poor wife beaters. The rich wife beaters, but the poor wife beaters. But if you think it's going to stay that way, if you think they're the only ones that they have plans for disarming in the near future, you're woefully mistaken. This is rule by crisis over and over again. You see what fucking Chris Murphy said. Oh my God, people were so scared because the 19 kids who died were allowed to die for those 77 minutes in Uvalde. Oh my God, we got to do something. Here we go. We'll pass this thing, which, by the way, they talk about over 30 years since national fucking gun law has been implemented. There's a reason for that, because we don't want it. But you rule by crisis, and that's what you get. If you think for a second that this is not incrementalism, that they're not going to impose this on middle-class kids soon. First, it's just the poor kids, people who are on Medicare, people who are on CHIP, but it'll be expanded. They will be branching out. I seriously doubt it ever makes its way to the really cultured, high-end private institutions. Not the ones that the state pays for under the fucking charter school system, but the real ones, where the wealthy people send their fucking kids. You won't see it up there, because their lawyers would destroy it. But you will see it everywhere else. This is a very unconstitutional and selective piece of legislation that we know will be signed thanks to the bipartisan fucking support from just enough Republicans. It's a show, folks. They're going to get what they want to get. Uvalde fucking school system police department is going to go from 5 dumbasses up to 20 dumbasses. And they'll have new cars and new toys and maybe a fucking MRAP vehicle so they can rush through and bust through the fucking side of the wall. And all because of 77 minutes. 77 minutes, folks. And this is what happens to our country. Thank you for your time.